Excellent. So hello, everybody. Welcome to our third Virtual Scouters Club meeting. And tonight we're going to be going through our Scouting at Home and Program Support update. First of all, it is National Volunteer Week. I would like to say a big thank you to all of our volunteers within White Pine Council. You guys are absolutely incredible. We love you so much. You do many good things for our council and for our youth in our council. I can't say enough about how awesome you guys are. It's fantastic working with every one of you. Happy Volunteer Week, and know that you are very appreciated by all of us. Our rules of engagement again for tonight, same as last week. Please mute your mic and unmute only during the question and discussion time at the end of our presentation. Please turn off your video. Presenters will have their video on, and this will help with any lag that occurs during our virtual time. We can turn on, we'll be turning back on the video at the end for our social time again. You have the option to turn off incoming videos. So again, it helps you prevent some screening lag. So if you want to turn off your video, there is a little button under the More Options feature to let you turn that off. Please ask any questions in the chat bar throughout the presentation, and we'll address them in the discussion and question periods. This session is being recorded and will be shared, and please keep questions to the topics of the day. Our agenda tonight, we will be going through a safety moment, Scouting at Home questions and sharing, program support update, and at the end, our discussion and open floor. Kate, I'm going to pass it on to you.
Okay, so for the safety moment, again, focusing this week on virtual scouting, so engaging with our sections online virtually. We've had a lot of conversation around Zoom, so I thought I would start with that this week. We have learned that they've switched their server default, so it's no longer directed through China, which was apparently one of the main concerns last time we chatted. So as long as you're using those steps that we continue to share, using the waiting room feature, keeping the link private, using the password function, Zoom is as acceptable as any other software for hosting your virtual meetings. So I just thought we would address that right off the start. Again, reminding on the 2 scouter rules. So all virtual interactions require 2 screened and trained scouters to be present. The waiting room feature allows you to control this. So again, another benefit to that. And also just a notice, I guess, that most social media sites do have an age requirement that you be 13 years of age to have an account. And so if you are engaging virtually with your sections through Facebook, Instagram, like any name the social network that of your youth's preference, it probably requires that they be 13. So just a reminder to make sure that you're having those conversations with your parents, the permission is in place there, and that those age restrictions are being, I guess, respected. They're there for a reason, and we just wanted to highlight that today as a safety moment. We really love hearing from our peers and showcasing the great work that our groups are doing, leveraging the Scouting at Home initiatives and engaging virtually with their sections. And we're very excited this week to hear from Marcel from the 13th Whitby group. Marcel, if you can unmute your mic, I will hand it over to you.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity to speak and to just connect. And I would start off by saying if anything I'm sharing, or if you have a question or a comment, or you would like some feedback or help on what we may be doing at 13th, then I'm happy to share. So this is not consider this the beginning of an open invitation for a discussion with me. I'm happy to help wherever I possibly can. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I mean, there's been a lot of great comments said on many of the other meetings. Some of the general great tips are things like, be aware of the limited time that you're having your meetings. You can change that up because certainly, at least for my cubs anyway, they're full of spit and vinegar and lots of energy with there. So we're good for an hour, but that's about it. Make sure that it's interactive and engaging. So use some really creative ways to do that. And I'll share some of the things that we've done that we think are working. And I would recommend using props wherever you can. And I've got some examples here. I indicated to Kate, I don't have a presentation. I'm going to use speaking notes, but I'll be showing the props that I use to get things going. And just to give you an update on 13th, all of our sections, so our colony, pack, and troop are having interactive meetings. Some were started a little slower than others. We certainly have had some of the downsides. The negatives are there have been some issues with connectivity of some of the youth, at least in pack. I can speak to that. And there have been some attendance. Some of the kids don't like the online, and for that, I would urge you to connect with your parents. We're all working hard to build our own little community within our pack or our colony or our troop. So just remember that, treat them like family. If you haven't heard from them in a while, then you need to call or send an email, say, I hope everything's okay. If you need anything, please let me know. And they totally love that. I know my parents are very appreciative of just being connected. They know that you've got them on their minds and you're concerned just to make sure that everything is okay. Who knows? Maybe something is wrong. Maybe, little Billy or Betty are sick, and, you need to connect with them to find out what's going on. So without further ado, I'll get started. So before I started the online meetings, the section meetings with my pack, I sent out a Kayla's challenge. So the challenge that I sent out with them, the first one, was to put together a poster and do some artwork. And that kind of laid the groundwork before the first meeting. And then I had another kind of theme piece to it, and it was called Where's a Kayla? So we would start off the meeting every week with me being in a different location. So first meeting, I set up my tent in the living room, and I sat in front of it. I had my full brimmed hat on. I had, I had my blanket on beside me. I was all ready to go. So I made it look as if, but I had the camera very, very close like this. So I'd say to the kids,
Marcel, I don't think you have your camera on right now. I can't see you, and I feel like you're holding your props up.
Okay, I do have the camera on, but I'm not sure if you guys can see me or not. Maybe you're still sharing your screen.
Maybe. Okay, just wanted to make sure it was on.
Yep, I don't see me as far as the main. I see myself down off on the side, but so anyway, so there. Okay, great. So there. So I made sure that I tried to hide where I was, and they would ask questions and they try to figure out. But that whole purpose of that was just to engage with them and get them involved. And trust me, if one of your really energetic cubs is off to the side and they hear all the other cubs asking these questions and trying to find out what's going on, I'll bet you my paycheck they're going to be asking questions too and trying to figure it out. And they do. So that's a great way of engaging them. So I was in a tent the first time. I laid down in a hammock the second time, and I had my son, who's a cub in my pack, come in. He said into the microphone, "Hey, look, Kayla's sleeping. Let's try to wake him up." So we had everybody screaming into the mics or whatever in their virtual. So I'm sure the parents were wondering what the heck's going on over there. But anyway, and then the third time, I used to be a tree climber years ago, but I still have all my equipment. So I climbed 25 feet up of my backyard, my tree, and I put on my helmet and my gear, and I held the camera really, really close to my face, and I said, "Okay, where's a Kayla? Can you guess where a Kayla is?" And they're like, "Oh, I can see branches behind your head, and I'll bet you're in the backyard." And I said, "Yeah, but where am I?" And then when everybody had exhausted all those questions, I drew my camera way back, and they could see that I was way up high in the air. And I said, "Well, I'm 25 feet up in the air in the backyard." But I said, "Look, why I'm wearing a helmet." And I showed them the knots on my brace, on my equipment. And I passed the meeting over to my other scouter. And then I rappelled down the tree and came in and joined the meeting afterwards. So it doesn't have to be as complicated as that. I happen to have the gear and the ability to do that, but it could just be like hide in a closet. That's one of the ideas I've got to do. Go under a bed or something. Do really odd, crazy stuff just to keep them thinking, what's that next place going to be, right? And then we would do our opening, and we'd open with sometimes the last meeting I switched it up, and I called the pack in, and he yelled pack, 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 and everybody, of course, they did what they're supposed to do. But then we always follow with the promise. So we do the promise. sometimes we do the law, the cutback law and the motto, but we always do the promise. And part of the promise, if you remember the last part, is to do a good turn for everybody every day. So following that, which is a perfect segue, and the next thing we do in our meeting, we do a weekly check-in. And this is just really to get the pack, to build that community, to get the pack to talk to each other. And I think it was mentioned in one of the previous calls how much the kids really love that, because it's a great way to keep those friendships alive, right? And you're so right in that. You really, really must give them the time to get to know, check with each other to see how they're doing. And I check with what good deeds did you do this week? What good turn did you do for somebody during the week? And they share that. And the thing about it, everybody wants to share, right? They have something they want to. So I'll guarantee you the next week, the pack will be going out and doing something for somebody every day. If it's just their family members they're living with, and that's fine, whatever it might be. But I think we've got an opportunity there to weave some real goodness in the midst of what we're going through, right? So, and that's the whole purpose of that, I think. So then some of the other things that I've done is knots. So, I mean, I'm notoriously known for carrying around a rope because I'm addicted to doing knots, and maybe that's part of the tree climbing part. But knots I've known that from my outdoor experience and camping. It's really helpful. So my wife Pierrette actually is very handy and creative, and she came up with this little book of knots, it's called, and it's got all the different diagrams of the knots. And actually this is based on the OAS, so it's the 5 key knots that we want to teach at this level. But we get into the regular knots that we have in the fisherman's knot, the square knot, etc. But here's the neat thing about that. Not only is this printed on one piece of paper that you fold into a booklet, it also, we put it in a little baggie, and then we add a little stick, and we add 2 little pieces of paracord. Okay, so each cub, when we started our knot instruction way back when we started the year, got one of these, and they got extra points every meeting if they had this in their possession in case we were doing knots. So it's great because it's all encompassed in one little bag they can throw in their backpack that they bring to the meeting with them with their water bottle or whatever it is, or their emergency kit, which we made for them. And so they can use this to practice their knots. And so another thing that we've incorporated into this, the whole meeting around knots, we do a weekly challenge for knots, and we also do a video. Sometimes it's very difficult. So if I was describing a knot and I'm doing the knot here, right? It's very difficult. I can bring it up and show it to you, but it's very difficult. So I found a video series called Captain Bob's What Knots? And it's this old retired guy who happens to be a sailor or yachting, and he demonstrates the knots. And the videos are really, really great, and they're very clear. And I mean, I offered that one out. You can use that one, but there are plenty of YouTube folks out there that can really demonstrate, and they take their time so you can really see it, right? That's the challenge, is sometimes it's very difficult. Lighting in here might not be the greatest. So that's what we do. We do a weekly knot challenge. Just to give you an idea, I have one cub. His name is William. He's 9. His grandfather is a sailor, and I have not yet met a 9-year-old that knows more knots than I do. So in order to keep William engaged, I offer a weekly knot challenge to everybody else, and then I offer one to William. So at the end of the meeting, I have the other scouters stay on, and I tell William, okay, your challenge for knots this week is, and the last week I got him to do a double figure 8 with a bite. And if you know that one, it's a very handy figure 8, very strong, but a little bit tricky to learn. And he was like, I never heard of that one. And he gets all excited, and he has his own little knot application, and he figures it out. So I started that this week. The previous week, William was complaining because we were doing the sheep bend, and he knew that one. He said he did it right away, and he said, "Look, I've done it." And then so I said, well, I didn't have anything ready for him. So I said, I'll tell you what, I challenge you to find 2 knots that Akela doesn't know, and bring it to the next meeting. So you got to know that William was there front and center at the meeting this week, ready to tell Akela that he had two, and he did. He found two knots that I had no idea. I've got to practice them, so that's on my homework I have to do. So those are kind of some of the things that we're doing that really are helpful. And then just to add to some of the videos that we've shown, there's a Leave No Trace. There's some really great videos on Leave No Trace. There's also a really great video on head concussions or head safety. So we showed them that, and it's all kind of cartoonish. So it's well within it's animation that's well within their age range, right? So they enjoyed that. They are more engaged with it. And then it's story time. So I have a prop. This is my own actual Jungle Book, and it's full of great images, right? So we've got, sorry, that's not a great page there. Let me just pick one. So here's some of the images that we have. They're just really wonderful. So what I've been doing is reading a chapter of this book every week. And the only thing I would suggest is be careful, because this one here is actually, it's a Rudyard Kipling, it's a young reader's edition. So you don't want to actually, reading from the novel is wonderful. I mean, you can't deny that, the pack, that's the basis of pack, right? Jungle Book. And we should really, I believe we should use theme. And that was taught to me by Michael Rowe. Shout out to him. He really has inspired me in that area to bring props. So I have my own Bagheera, and I have my own Akela, and we bring those out. I had these two sitting with me when I was in the tent the first week. Bagheera's a favorite of mine, but anyway. And so when I read the story, they may know who Bagheera and Akela are, but they might not know who Hati is. So we bring out some props that have Hati, who is the giant elephant in the story, right? And luckily, the book has a lot of the images in here. They're really well illustrated, very colorful, and so it gets them inspired. But I never thought that they would get overly excited about this. Some of the kids are really quite energetic, and I didn't know that they'd sit down, but they love this part. Then this past week, they reminded me, Akela, you haven't told us chapter 3. We want to know what happened to Mowgli. And so I read that part of the story out. So I think there's like 6 chapters in this book. And when we finish that, I've got some other stories that I can tell, but I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. Semaphore flags. This one actually surprised me quite a bit. So Richard Davies is one of my other scouters, so shout out to him on that one. He thought his focus has been on getting on the OAS, which is awesome. He wants to try and find some ways of us not losing the program altogether. I mean, certainly it's wonderful to have all these stories and everything, and I think it's really important. There's some good messaging in it, but we also, let's not forget, we have a program to hit these OAS skills as much as we can. So I think driving that is really important, and doing it in as creative a way as you can. So the week, not this week, but previous week, we sent out the template to make these semaphore flags. So you could print them, you stick them to a little dowel or whatever, a piece of a twig out from outside. And then what we did was we provided them with, let me just find that. We provided them with the semaphore flag. Where did I put it? It fell on the floor. Anyway, there's the whole legend on the different lettering and everything. So we sent that out to them as well and asked them to practice. If they could do their initials of their name, that would be great. And so when they came back, I pushed my screen back so they could see my full body, and I did practice ABC. And if you haven't noticed yet, but the semaphore signals are like a clock, right? So your arms move around in a clock pattern. And so some of them really picked up on that, and they embraced that. They had a lot of fun with that. So we practiced ABC. We had a whole conversation about SOS and how does that work, and we practiced actually signaling SOS. There were some great questions like, well, why are you going to do that if if you can yell, they probably hear you, right? But I mean, there's a reason for the semaphore, right? So it's a lot clearer, and you don't have to worry about whether they actually hear all of the words that you've said. And then we did the cub initials. And this one really surprised me. I thought that they would be like, let's get this over with. But they were all, throwing their hand up wanted to do their initials. One of the cubs wanted to spell his entire name. We had another cub who was doing the emergency signal on the side to get attention instead of putting his hand up. So it went over really, really well, and I was just thrilled that they were having a good time with it. Then we do some journaling as well. So back at the beginning of the year, on our first meetings, we've started doing this, and this is basically a journal of the different activities that. So they made this journal. So it's a cardboard back. You just cut out, old cardboard boxes and bring them into the meeting. They have to color their own front cover and put their name on it. And then these are pipe cleaners, just making it like 3-ring binder. And then as the meetings go by, every meeting, there's something that you can do. So this one was the promise. So you had to cut out a fleur-de-lis and put the promise in there and glue it all together. We did some part of learning your plants. We had some plant identification, and we had some of the plant pictures, so they can identify some flowering plants. That's part of for the OAS. And then we did some orienteering and some leaf rubbing. So the reason that this is important now, you may think, oh, well, that's great, Kayla, but you've got all these with you. I do. I have a whole box of them, and I bring them to the meetings every week. Well, now, things like their semaphore flags and their semaphore legend can go in here. They just need to save it. And then what I plan on doing near the end of the year is I'm going to put this out at my front door in a box. I'll tell them I'll leave it out there for a couple of days so that it can be, free of any kind of possible risk. And then I'll have them come and pick them up at the door. And I won't, I'll let them come and pick up their name and take it with them. And then maybe I might even actually throw in the badges that they've earned for that year. So we'll see, but we're going to cross that bridge when we get to it. But we're going to keep these, and I think this is a great memento for them. It's great that these activities happen, but I always wonder, like, what's left after that? I mean, we have a memory, but is there something more that we can have? And I think there is. I think you can have them walk away and then reflect back on the year and know that they've what we did and what we talked about, etc. And just to add to that, so also a shout out to Beth McWardle. She put together a COVID. It was like a time capsule thing or a journal. I sent that around to all my cubs, and I said, fill that out, and that can be a part of that journal that we started with the kids as well. So, so these are the things that we've done up to this point. And at every week, we certainly are looking at what we had planned for the entire year and going back and saying, okay, can we still do that? I mean, things like we have a canoe day scheduled. We're not going to likely get out together, but can we look at the paddles and talk about sizing and the parts of the paddle? And I can drag my canoe in the house if I have to, and we'll go through it that way. And maybe that's the next place that Kayla will be in. Certainly wouldn't mind sitting in it. Anyway, thanks again for the opportunity, and I'll hand it back to Kate and whoever else is up next. Take care.
That was so fun, Marcel. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Marcel before we continue on?
That was amazing.
To hear from someone who's like so involved in this. Really, thanks, Marcel.
My pleasure.
I figured out when I clicked on your picture, I couldn't see you bigger on the screen. I kept on looking at the bottom.
Can I ask, is there anywhere to get a copy of the sheet that has the knots on it, or is that something you made up?
That's well, my wife Pierrette made it up. So she's secretary on the group. Treasurer on the group committee. So, but she helps out behind the scenes with me a lot more than you can imagine. We sit around and talk about these
marry someone else, or can I get a copy?
No, you can get
Marcel, if you're willing to share it, if you send me the file, I can circulate it with the recording from tonight, and then everyone can access it.
Sure thing. And I may have to include a video on how to fold it as well, because it can be a bit tricky, but
yes, for sure.
Thank
you so
Perfect.
much.
That's great.
Amazing. Thanks, Marcel.
Well, I'm inspired. All right. I think next we are just going to address some of the questions that came in from our community this week. So what I'll do is I'll just we've been talking about them with our network kind of as they've been coming in. I'll share those conversations. And if there's anything to add once we hit the fourth question, please do chime in if you have a different experience. So the first one here, how can we showcase activities and successes of scouting? I mean, there's so many places. So if you're sharing them with Gwen and myself, we can use our Scouts Canada, our council Facebook page. You can also tag at Scouts Canada and hashtag Scouts Do Stuff. They're picking up and sharing stories like that. We have our national communications team is working on a larger strategy for showcasing the successes and accomplishments of our youth during this era of virtual scouting. So we will expect to see some more directions for how to be involved in that. But at the end of the day, really just keep sharing, telling us. Another idea that came in was to invite your youth to send an email of their scouting adventures to their own networks. So their classmates, a lot of the students now are engaging in some form of communication with their classmates and teachers. So even sharing some of their successes with that community, showcasing what they're being up to, that kind of thing. So just really encourage sharing in all the ways that you can. In terms of this question around leveraging social media, again, ensuring that the age requirements and guidelines are being respected where it's appropriate. Encourage your youth and your families to share their scouting adventures on their own social media. One of the ideas that came in was to have a week-long challenge where you have all the youth in your section share one of their scouting adventures, virtual or not, every single day on their own social media and tagging people. If you tag somebody, it will show up to more people and then they can share it. And if you share your post, then it is also more visual. So there's different ways for sure, depending on the platform that you're using. And again, there is a national campaign, there are national channels. And so if you use the @Scouts Canada on either Facebook or Instagram, then it may get recognized and shared further, and hashtag Scouts Do Stuff and hashtag Scouting at Home. So keeping some order during virtual meetings. This is a recurring question, especially for the junior section. So in Zoom, there is a raise your hand feature that has proven to be successful if your youth are able to do that. The other way was to have a co-facilitator. So again, Zoom has the option where you can have a co-host. This was something that Scouter Craig shared with us last week, was that if you have one of your Scouters being the main content person and your other Scouter being the co-host, then that Scouter can be muting and unmuting people. And you're kind of assigning the speaking rights in a way as the youth are engaging. Some other options were to have different props and themes for how they would show that they were ready to participate or speak. So if it was a Disney theme meeting, then to raise their Disney toy in the air, or if it was flags, to raise their flag, just to make it a little more fun and still with a theme versus just like sitting there waving their hand. So I think those were some of the main ones that have been coming out in terms of keeping order. Certainly having an agenda and the dress code, again, some ways of formalizing the participation, bringing that familiarity to the youth. That's a way to help them get in the mindset of being at a section meeting. Scouting has started and I know how to behave in this environment. Some of those are triggers to help that behavioral mindset as well. And how do we increase enthusiasm about the program? Again, share. So if your youth are having a great time, encourage your families to share it within their networks. Send emails, send updates, send mail. I mean, I know all of the youth that I am involved with are really enjoying getting mail. They're coloring each other pictures, things like that. So you can be creative and just spread it around. I mean, we can do bring a friends. And so if your youth is really loving the virtual engagement they're getting, pick a friend or a cousin from their network. The beauty of it now is they don't have to be in the same area to come attend. They could live in a different city, and invite them to participate in a section meeting and go through the right process to respect the privacy and all of those types of things there as well. But that youth who's bringing a friend in that meeting is going to be more excited about the program that week as well. So just share, and don't feel limited by your computer screen, because in reality, it actually expands the amount of people that we can involve and the reach that our enthusiasm can have. Those were some of the points that we had to share with those questions. Anybody on the line have anything to add in any of those categories that may be helpful to this discussion?
We're planning on holding our first one with 2nd Sydney Scouts next week, and we're going to have the kids bring a drink, so like do a campfire type thing of hot chocolate and a snack.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, well, I think we can move on to the next one, Gwen, which I think this is going to be the best practices. So yes, we have added to the RSVP form for people to start sharing us with what's going well for them. They're listed here. Some of the activities we've talked in depth about scavenger hunts. Some ideas coming in was to take video of doing trash cleanup, of course, with parent supervision, or even doing live, going in like when a section has its own private Facebook group and you're out doing one of the activities outdoors with your parent supervision, to go live and share that within the section. That's something that's working well for a group. Sharing toys and costumes, similar to come prepared for a campfire snack. Come prepared with your favorite superhero toy to share, or your Disney toy. Those were ones that were shared. And create a Kahoot. So the website is here, but this is really fun. It's an interactive educational tool. So you could pick a theme. It might be a great gathering game at the beginning of your meeting, or even if you wanted to present your content through this. But basically, all of the kids would be on the website, and then you put the content on, and then they pick whichever answer. And it's really, really quick. But check it out if you haven't. If you just Google the Kahoot, it's a great tool. And again, it's been working well for one of our sections. In terms of a process, this was shared with us. So post the link to the Zoom meeting in your Scouts tracker with the details and agenda for that meeting. But then a few hours before the meeting, send the email with the information in it as well, just because our days are blending into each other. So in terms of process, this group felt that leaving it in Scouts tracker wasn't getting the participation, and sending the reminder a couple of hours just before the meeting was really being well received by the parents in particular as a reminder. So that was what was shared for best practices. We are still working on figuring out the best repository to store all of this dynamic sharing of information as it's coming in. And we also know that there's some more resources going to be coming down nationally as well to help. So we'll just keep adapting and putting it together as we can. Anyone on the call have something that they would like to add to the best practices for their virtual scouting that they've experienced?
Hi, Kate. One of the things we do is we also use the RSVP in Scout Tracker, and that helps the person when we're admitting to kind of know if you have everybody that you're kind of expecting.
Nice.
I like the idea about following up with the ones who didn't attend, just to see what's going on.
Yeah, that personalized email, right? Or a phone call or whatever it is, that way of connecting with them.
I have a quick question about Scout Tracker. I'm brand new to it, and I was just getting the hang of it when the world exploded. Is there a really good website to go I don't know all the little ins and outs, because I know it's a versatile website, but I'm not proficient at it. Is there somewhere on Scouts Canada I can go and find a good video, or I hate to say manual because they're broke. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You want me to take this?
Yeah, June, I was just going to tag you in.
June.
Okay. There are some very good resources online. Even if you just go to your Google search and type in Scout Tracker manual, it brings you to the Scout Tracker, I believe, wiki site, which is done by the developer, and in there he has all kinds of how-tos on all aspects of it. And I believe we are within the Scouter clubs. We're going to be having a Scout Tracker how-to.
Yes, we are. We're hoping that one will be up soon, and it's June. Have you heard from Dave? We are trying to get the creator to participate, right?
Yeah, no, I haven't heard from him yet, so I think I'm going to start putting something together.
Yeah, and we're looking at doing that one pretty like in the next, 2 or 3 sessions from now. So that will be fairly timely for you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, June.
No problem.
That'd be great. I was going to say the same thing. Let's get them online.
Yeah, yeah.
Kate, I'll send you some of the links to the how-tos and the parent manuals and stuff like that you can share out.
Perfect. I'll put it in the email with the recording. That's great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. If no one else has any questions, we will move on to our program support update. So we're going to introduce here Marc Chamberland, who is our program support manager, and Jeff Sauve, our council commissioner. Jeff and Marc, it's on to you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thanks, Gwen and Kate. Awesome job, Marcel. Fantastic presentation on the knots. Actually, that booklet that you saw was. I'm looking forward to looking at it and trying to fold it. Hopefully I get the origami correct. Anyway, the process tonight that what we'd like to do with Marc is simply give you a high level synopsis of what the functional teams will look like from the national perspective downward, and how it will impact the overall group support aspect, and try and answer as many questions as we can, given that we don't know all of the answers to the potential questions that are out there. So with that, I will hand it over to Marc, who will give you a better understanding of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Number one, who got that photo of me? That's a pretty awesome pic there. Kudos. Did you go through my agent or something? Like that's pretty sweet.
I'm as good of a Facebook stalker as the next person.
Oh, that is from Facebook. Yeah, I think it was my fall pic or something. I was hiking with my troop, so hey, you know what? It works. So ta-da! Sweet. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm here tonight, and as Jeff said, just to give you guys a synopsis, explain a little bit of what the vision is behind this whole program support thing. This has been a work in progress. We've been working on a lot of, as you all know, program, and even scouting in itself has multi-layers of all sorts of great teams and things happening. And it's how we're sort of consolidating some of them and how we're sort of actively working with other ones to sort of create some different momentums and some different opportunities to help support our scouters at the base level, but at the same time support some of our other levels of tiers of people who are working. So you want to go into the next slide. Oh, there's transitions and everything. I love it. Sweet. So there's 4 tiers, and I think you've probably heard about these already. So what happened is that we sort of took everything that sort of encompasses program that is offered at the council level, or that groups are looking for, sections are looking for, and we sort of broke it up into 4 tiers, or 4 buckets that I sort of like to nickname them. So these buckets are there to sort of help address, refine, and perfect some of the stuff that we do already for our sections. So the first one is, of course, directly to talking to sections. So we're talking about in-section support. So what does that mean? Well, in-section support is basically where we help those struggling sections get help in various ways, either through a consultation or conversation with them about how some of their program, how their program is going and how we can tweak it. And the thing is that this conversation already happens on the group support stage. So the GSSs are there to sort of have that conversation through the group commissioners. Sometimes that we might have a green beaver colony, a bunch of scouters that are pretty green, they're pretty new, they're well-intentioned, they just need a bit of help or a bit of somebody to come in and just give them a bit of mentoring. So they can sort of raise a flag, wave that, and then we'll, as the program team ourselves, we'll take a look and see who we can send. Perhaps somebody who has that experience or a great colony scouter that can come in for a night, talk with the scouters, over a big nacho platter of some sort, and just talk with those scouters and see how they can sort of help. The ultimate goal here is that, maybe through that mentoring, that might sort of address the gap, or we might find that they have a bigger need. They really are all starting from scratch and they really want to know how to do this. And we've seen this sometimes with colony scouters moving up to pack. Sometimes it's just that transition. You just get that cluster of like 5 great scouters moving up into pack, and they're somehow now in charge of a cub pack, and they're treating it as a colony because that's the only thing they're familiar with. So they're trying to understand, hey, wait a minute, what's this Jungle Book thing? Somebody call Marcel. He needs to read us the story or something, or send us a stuffy of some sort. So through that sort of, again, flag waving, they're able to sort of, get the group commissioner can sort of task that and say, all right, well, let's see if we can find you some help. And that program team would come in and sort of maybe spend 5 weeks with you guys talking about the symbolic framework of the Jungle Book and work with your sections on how to offer the program, working with the howlers, the trackers, the runners, and how to sort of encompass all the other elements that are actually pack appropriate and age appropriate. So this would basically be, a series of people, which I have nicknamed Sherpas. Those are the people that are just basically escorting people to a great peak, to a great point, to a great destination. So that's the little adorable name I give them. That are, we know that these people are, usually, we know who these scouters are, the ones who usually have like great back pocket games or, great in-section scouters or mentors or great facilitators that are able to share that passion of what is a great colony scouter and how a colony should function, or a pack or a troop. So that's just in-section support. The second one is community. So through community, we're talking about basically that ultimate sort of networking and training opportunities that we have within scouting and how we sort of connect that. So we're talking about indabas. We're talking about training sessions. We're talking about scout cons. We're talking about webinars, just networking opportunities. It basically can take various forms, from all sorts of things, from maybe an evening session to a weekend to Saturday to, again, like we said, webinars. So it's basically, they're the ones who are going to be helping facilitating, organizing, and implementing some of those strategies within the local areas. And then from there, we have our events people. And the events people, we've all knows, are the small events, large events. We're talking about rallies. These are the people that, will plan and sort of, it might be something that's local, council-wide, or it might be province-wide, who knows. But again, it's back to the cub car rallies, cubberies. Actually, you could say anything that has "or-re" at the end of it is probably something they're going to be playing and dabbing with. And then, of course, it can be, and I've put it as an example, might be a STEM event. We might decide, hey, a whole Saturday just dedicated to STEM. Again, these are things that are answering the call of what we see that might be a great trend happening either within other councils, or it's something that we've said, you know what, locally here, I think this would be a great event. We should try to put a team together and sort of plan this. And then there's the outdoor adventure side of things. We all know those scouters that are just, amazing with a paddle, are rock climbers, they're the nature enthusiasts, the gravity defying rock climbers, those perhaps outdoors, all those outdoorsy type people. They usually wear the same shirt and smell like campfire smoke. That's how I usually tell apart who are the outdoor adventure people. So from there, their goal is to work the outdoor adventure skills, is to bring in also the third-party certification. So if we're talking about either Paddle Canada, Orca, if we're talking about, let's say, first aid, we're talking about also any other sort of organizations that we might have certifications with, they're able to sort of do it, including Duke of Ed. They're able to give support towards that, either some sessions or organized courses, depending on what the needs are. From there, they're the ones who are going to help promote and use adventurous program support. So if we know that there's a scout troop that is wanting to go on a canoe trip, then they're the people to approach to say, all right, well, we'll work with the scouters and explain what they need to be prepared for, what are some of the things that they should consider doing, and perhaps have a pretty good idea of where to go and where to have that experience. And if these people, and I've seen this before, where even at my own council, where we have some scouters are saying, hey, we'd love to do some canoe tripping, but there's not really any interesting places around here. Could we go in Quebec? And what can we find in La Vérendrye or Parc Papineau-Labelle? So these are the people who are going to be able to sort of reach out and sort of find some of those things and give that support to those scouters who are really looking at doing some great things. We might also eventually, down the line, who knows, through these teams, think up of already pre-packaged sort of adventure packages and say, hey, there's an opportunity. Here's a great couple of lakes. And again, Parc La Vérendrye, let's say, and say, here's an opportunity for you guys to do this. Let us know if your scouts are interested. And from there, we will help build with them which lakes they want to go, how long they want to make this trip, and sort of help sort of package and do these things for sections. And it might be venturers, it might be also rovers. But it sort of gives better access to outdoor adventure. And that's the ultimate goal through that sort of bracket. So with these 4 teams in mind, what we see on our sort of our own levels, and you want to go to the next slide? Actually, right before you, oh, you clicked it. Oh, darn. Oh, you're back. Oh, look at that. That was cool. Any questions on this slide so far, or where I'm going with this? Or I'm sure many of you guys have heard about this, I think, or seen some communications around this. Maybe. And how am I doing? Is my mic actually on, or are people just reading my lips?
It's all good, Mark.
Oh, thank God. They're probably just wondering what's up with his hair. So, all right. So we'll go to the next slide, but don't worry. If you have any questions, we can talk about it afterwards. So when we break this down, and so I'm there in the big blue sort of square there as the program support manager. The people that we were talking about, those people organizing the rallies, organizing the local cubberies, jamborees, sort of events and everything else, are part of that bar on the bottom there called the Program Support Scouters Network. And they'll fall under all that bucket. Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you for that. Is that Jeff? Or is that Kate?
It's Gwen.
Oh, Gwen, you go, girl. All right, sorry. I was just like, oh, cool. This is great. So, support at its best right there. So right there at the bottom, those are where those amazing value scouters are going to be. All those in-section guru, those Sherpas I'm talking about, those community gurus, those event roadies, and basically your outdoor ninjas. They're all there in sort of that wonderful package to help all our local scouters find that support that they need. From there, they will have support from what we call program support coordinators for each of the buckets. So those program support coordinators will be there to sort of make sure that the Program Support Scouters Network has what they need, understand where some of the mandate might be, where we might need to distribute some resources, basically be that sort of tiered support to sort of help drive and make sure they have what they need to be successful in their roles. Again, the in-section support scouters, they need to know which groups they need to sort of work with. So we will get some, communication from our GSSs and probably from the council saying, hey, these following groups need help, this colony, this. And we will be able to sort of, that program support coordinator as a volunteer will be able to sort of drive some of that stuff and say, okay, well, these are the volunteers that we have. This is the pool. Let's work with them and see where we can sort of help these people. And it's the same thing with the program support coordinators for community and events and, of course, the outdoor adventure. So from there, we can also see that there is a green bar. If we look at the Program Support Scouter Network, nope, a little lower, you're doing great though. The little bubbles, the 6 bubbles, we might have somebody who's doing in-section support and is also probably involved in community. So we might have some of those volunteers that, can actually play both roles quite nicely. So it's not that we're going to be, these people will be able to sort of contribute sort of to some of the other buckets. We also know that if we're organizing a scout con and we need Marcel's amazing abilities to chat during the scout con about what to do on virtual scouting, and perhaps Marcel is part of the in-section support scouter, well, we know that pool of in-section support scouters that we have would be great facilitators during our chats that we're going to have during a scout con. So we will definitely be playing with those pools just as much as if we're again organizing a scout con and we need a great opportunity to have a bunch of third-party vendors in a market fair sort of type space where they're talking about what activities are available and and what's available for your sections to do. Then they can approach all those vendors and have those people set up within the sort of that gym space or wherever that marketplace might be during the scout con. And through that, they are supported through me, where I am their staff support. So that way, all I'm driving with them is sort of making, giving them what they need, looking at sort of stuff that they may require. Sorry, there's some chat things that keep popping up in my, I was like, what's going on? Something blow up? There is, so I'm there to sort of support them, give them, some direction and support depending on what is needed. there to sort of, work some of the sessions. Perhaps there's a multi-tiered facet of how I'm going to be supporting these multiple teams. But basically, I will be, for the very first time in Scouts Canada, a dedicated program support to some of these various teams that are there to drive quality of our programs. So that, in a nutshell, is sort of what we are looking at as we're eventually going to be implementing this, hopefully starting this fall with these multiple teams. So in the next, as we're finalizing some of the plans and some looking at job descriptions and a variety of other layers, we call that Papa Squirrel. Thanks. You guys are not helping me. I'm ADD. Hopefully what we're going to be able to accomplish through this is that, eventually you're going to see memos and things asking, hey, would you like to be one of those Sherpas or an outdoor ninja? Are you one of those great program people that can actually fit into one of these amazing sort of categories to be one of those support scouters, as part of that network? And help create these great opportunities that we already see that happens typically in councils, in local areas, in the community, and everything else. Jeff, did I miss anything? Anything to add, or Gwen or Kate?
I think one of the main features that we need to drive home is the program support coordinators. They're kind of like the project coordinators or the project managers of each portfolio, and the program support scouters, or the teams that really come from the council, and I may use also the term councils, depending on if there's any overflow, are the ones that will operationalize or move the program forward and support the groups that way. That is also not to say that there may be room for specialized or more localized teams as well within the council.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to go on to some questions that were asked when we sent out the initial RSVP, and Mark or Jeff, if you could kick in and possibly answer some of these questions, that would be wonderful. Currently, Jeff or Mark, what is the current state of each of the functional teams? Jeff?
Okay. As we communicated within a couple of the council memos going out to the entire membership, the introduction of the functional teams, what we have done is we have moved forward all of the area support scouting roles into a council support scouter role. The intent for doing that is to ensure that, number one, we know who the main volunteers that we're supporting the program aspect. So we will be reaching out in the next little while in order to have further discussions regarding the functional teams, and inviting you to look at which team you would like to be part of. And from there, we can also look at the more localized ones, or the smaller teams, such as, we want to run a smaller Cub Car Rally or a Cubbery, or whatever the case is, and actually move forward with that. Mark, did you want to add anything?
No, that's actually, that was perfect.
Oh, okay. Gold star.
No, you do. Yeah, let's.
1 for 1. How many teams are there, and what are they? And who would the volunteers report to?
So I guess one of the slides was sort of answering how many sort of teams we were seeing, most definitely. So they would be sort of under those 4 themes. From there, most of them will be reporting up to sort of the program coordinator, program support coordinator. And from there, the program coordinators sort of report to there will be a national commissioner for community, a national commissioner for events, and a national commissioner for outdoor adventure. There will be a multitude of coordinators from around the country that will be sort of reporting into them from there. So, that way that, keeps people sort of networked in and sort of, driving what they need to be driving with. How many teams there is? Well, who knows? We might have a variety of Cub Car rally teams, right? Like we're not going to do one Cub Car rally for White Pine. There's probably going to be some great pockets of Cub Car rallies. So as we sort of look at that local teams, there will probably be, depending on what the needs are and how typically it's sort of happened in the past of, how many events that we sort of organized, we'll probably have some people dedicated for each of those sort of events that were happening. So there will be a variety of teams for sure on the local network side of things.
Excellent. Once the team is built, will they be able to reach out to all groups and work with them, or will it be like a geographic distributed areas?
Jeff?
I was going to say it's probably both, because the intent is to look at a little bit of cross-pollination with the talent that we have within White Pine and move them into, let's say, a Voyager or a GTC and work on some of the larger events, such as the Scout Cons, Out Cons, get sharing of ideas. However, if we look at the smaller, more localized teams for, smaller events such as, and I'm just going to, throw out like Apple Day that they want to do on a smaller level, it doesn't have to go any bigger than that. Mark?
I would also say that there's an amazing opportunity to sort of network also. Mm-hmm. So we might have an opportunity in, like, let's say October, to put in a Teams call with all the Cub Car Rally people and have a great sharing of ideas. And then if they find that there's some common stuff that they require, from stuff, then we can sort of plan out some of those things. Like if we discover, okay, everybody's looking for an amazing sponsor for their events, or they're looking for better Cub Car track models or a bunch of other things, or what materials did they send to participants and everything else, then imagine these Cub Car Rally people getting an opportunity to share their own flyers that they use, but receive maybe through an email or through a folder that they can go into and open up, that they see 30, 40 other Cub Car Rally flyers and what their designs are and what they could be, able to use. So it's that will be sort of the, one of the cool things that they will be able to sort of, find. But again, it sort of, some of the local stuff will definitely be sort of, very local, but again, they'll have the opportunity to reach out to other bigger supports or actually networks.
Excellent.
There was something, I think there was a follow-up question in the chat.
Yeah, on number 3 about unclear where to go for help, the way that you have described it. So in essence, much like the GSS team, if there's any questions about the program support or where this falls, then we either reach out to the program coordinator, or we can go directly to Marc as the staff support. But then also the CK3 is involved in that as well. So there's a definite chain that we can follow.
Okay, the next question on the screen here is about recognition. Are there plans for centralized scouting and provincial award celebration at the beginning of the new scouting year? And how do sections submit nominations for these awards? Jeff, you want to take recognition question? I mean, we don't have Ida on the call, I don't believe, but.
Yeah, there is a recognition network on the national perspective, and their initiative is to ensure that recognition for the council and the Scouters is moving forward. That being said, a lot of the service years or the service awards can be done locally at the group level. If we look at the youth side of things, we were planning on holding a senior section awards ceremony in White Pine. Obviously, with COVID, we had to cancel that. However, what we would ask is, if the youth member has achieved the Chief Scout Award, the Queen's Venture, or the Canadian Rover Award, is it, Marc?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Then please put that into the My Scouts record, so that next year, when hopefully everything is good, we can actually invite them back so they can formally get recognized during that award ceremony.
The final question, or we have 2 other things on here. One is about organizational chart for council, group support scouters, and group committee members. We definitely have an org chart for our council, and we can share that. Kate and I can get that out and attach that to our meeting notes here.
Yeah.
So we will definitely send that out. Also, the name of the group support scouters are on our council website, as well as Jeff's and my information as well. So all of our members have been updated on that.
That's right. The only thing I'll add is for a complete directory with group committee members, the names, photos, details, all that kind of stuff. There's a little bit more work necessary for that, so that we need to actually contact every single person individually to make sure that we get their consent to publish that information.
But I really like the idea, the name, photos, and contact details.
Yep.
I mean, eventually, if we can create something like that, that'd be great. That'd be really awesome. Gwen, make sure you use my photo that you have there earlier. That was perfect.
Kate found that one.
Oh, Kate did. Oh, so she's my stalker. Giddy up. All right.
The final one we had was about PQAs. I don't exactly know what the question was. If anybody who was on here who submitted the question about PQAs, perhaps we can answer or help answer that question about them.
Gwen, it's Kate. The question as it was written was just what's the status of PQAs? So pretty open-ended, but I think there's just been a little bit of confusion around what tools to be used for program reviews and program quality assessments. Is it still the kind of box in My Scouts, et cetera? Is that still being monitored? And my guess is that's where the question was coming from, but so maybe we just comment on that.
Yeah, so there was no changes on the program assessment. So yes, you can use the document that's available online for each of the sections. You can use that to help your section review during program cycles. And from there, put in some of the results within My Scouts through the box in your section. So that way you can sort of share with your group committee and the rest of the people that this is what you're accomplishing so far, some of the results from what you've done in that review of that process of that cycle. And then if you do 3 cycles out of the 4 cycles, basically cycles or seasons, then you get your little year flash for past, offering a great, assessed program. Again, have those important conversations with your group committee. Like group commissioners know that that's something also that's important to sort of drive at and have that conversation with the section, see how they're doing. This also, doing the program quality assessment involves working it with your section. So there's some great questions to ask the section themselves. There was a few tips, and I think it's in a YouTube video, of how to do it also with younger sections, which actually helps a lot. I'm going to have to see if it's still up there. But there's some great tips and tricks of, how to review, like one of them was basically the clothesline effect, was basically creating a timeline with some photos and some cutouts and a bunch of other things of what they've done throughout the 3 months. And the Cubs could weigh in of which activities they like the most and actually use, things to clip in of what the activities was mattered for them in the last 3 months. What would they like to see in the near future? And through that clothesline also see, what is coming up if there's a big Cubbery spring camp happening and a few other things, and how they can sort of maybe prepare for some of that stuff or what they might need as skills to prepare for said activity. So things like that are great ways to have the section sort of review of what they've accomplished so far and what they're looking forward to doing next. But yeah, that should be reflected as you type it into your PQAs and My Scouts. It's excellent. But so far there is no changes in the program quality assessments.
Right. There was a question here regarding the teams from Carlos. It says, I'll be supporting the onboarding and possibly new initiative for Scouts with special needs with White Pine Council. I would love to link with folks doing the same thing within Scouting. So how do we go about doing that? I'm assuming that part of the question is regarding the overall team structure, and is there a network nationally? If there's a network nationally, I'm not aware of right now. However, to initiate this process, that would be more of a localized team, Carlos, which would be working more closely with the CK3 and getting Marc involved as well to see where can we move this forward. Yeah.
And on a national side, like I know there's other councils that have a similar team, so it might be it's a great idea to connect. I think that's an excellent suggestion.
And Marcel had also written in the chat box that he has some questions once we're ready for open floor, which I think we may be there now. So Marcel, do you want to go ahead and ask your questions?
Yeah, thanks. Just so I think this may have been answered, but just to clarify, so that the program support Scouter network essentially is it's basically anybody. How are you recruiting for this? Is it a tap on the shoulder? Someone said, if you want to know something about X, then you need to go talk to that person. And I guess that is linked to, so how are the coordinators going to be selected? Is that going to be selected through, I don't know, some sort of hiring process, or those volunteer positions?
Yeah, I think specifically when we look at I'll start with the coordinators. There is going to be a public appointment process that we use with a lot of the other recruitment guidelines. Part of that is going to be a conversation that we have, and I believe the CK3 is going to have a recommendation on those individuals. However, my understanding is they will be appointed by the associate director. Or
no, the commissioners, because they'll be reporting to the commissioners. So the in-section support commissioner will appoint the coordinators once they've had their meetings or interviews or whatever they're going to be using as the appointment process.
So we're looking more of a project manager type of mindset for that role. The team model or the network scouters, as far as the recruitment, is just a matter of, is this your passion? Is this your strong suit, your skill set, and then put you into that team, and then work together in order to move the program forward and support that way.
Yeah, there will be some form, like the coordinators will probably have some form of like appointment process, or at least hey, apply for not only just tapping the same people, but giving an opportunity for other people to apply for those roles. They will definitely have sort of an open call out to who's interested in being these in-section supports, or who wants to be known as an outdoor ninja.
That's a cool title.
I kind of like it. It's sticking with me, but who knows if so it's these ninjas in plaid. I don't know if it'll work. It just
and in terms of timing of all of this, so I imagine there's COVID's thrown a wrench in the gears there. But anyway, so the time that you anticipated to develop this network of bodies that you would, these ninjas, for lack of a better term, and the overall implementation of this leg of the journey, so to speak.
So you're right. COVID did sort of throw a bit of a wrench. So we're trying to sort of work things through. We're reaching a stage where we're hoping that to help sort of get these things going, and we want to do it properly. We're still, our resources right now are being used a lot for virtual scouting and supporting also scouting at home and a few other things. So we're a little sidetracked, but our goal is, if we can actually start recruiting these people in the summer, sort of have some sessions with them, and then hopefully have them in place in the fall, that'd be great. If we see that this is going to be too much of a demand at first, we may try to do one of the tiers first. Yep. You might say, all right, let's just do in-section support for now, recruit those people, get that model going, and then start moving on to the next one. And then probably do it in sort of that approach. Also, depending of how we're doing with resources, how we're doing with just manpower at the same time, and the availability of other teams like our commission, the new national commissioners, and everything else. So,
okay.
That would be, anyways, so far that's what we're seeing as a projection.
And, one of the things that we would like to do on a council perspective in order to help move this forward or initiate the process, not only are we going to be sending out invitations to those that were area support scouters, but it's open to anybody that, if you feel, based on the 4 main categories that were there, that I would like to be part of this team, by all means, let us know. We'll put your name down in whatever it is. And when we're ready to initiate those teams, it's as easy as just, letting all of those volunteers know.
Okay. So, as you know, there's a ton of different events that have been initiated by a number of scouters across the network that's out there right now that happen. I guess I wonder, because I mean, I think Mark touched on it. I think there's only going to be so much capacity that these program support coordinators are going to be able to manage. So how do you decide which events would be supported by that model and which ones would stay local, I suppose I'd put it that way, and continue in that manner? And then linked to that, how does the ownership, how's that get managed? Because I don't know, I'll use Apple Day, I guess. I mean, that's probably not a good example, but nonetheless, pick an event. And, you've had a scouter who's been, leading the charge and they're really passionate about it. And they may be supported in that area, but how does that continue? And you don't lose the drive that's happening in those key events that are getting great involvement from.
Jeff, did you?
Sure. I think one of the things to keep in mind is there is also the opportunity to keep the localized events or the event groups, so the smaller planning committees. Let's say you have a well-known Cubbery, Beavery, Cub Car Rally, or Apple Day that you do with a smaller geographic zoning or area. By all means, keep it going. We just need to coordinate it so that, should you need advanced funding for it, there may be some budget available for you, but it's just a matter of communication and getting it out. When we talk about the larger perspective of the team and getting the coordination out, that'll be for something more of a, the OuterCon or like an Indaba or even a joint council event of some sort, something that is larger scale. Is that fairly accurate, Mark?
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
Okay.
Okay. How do you, I guess, what's considered large? Is there some sort of, do you have a sense of that, or whether you say, okay, no, this is getting too big and it needs to get the proper attention and support. We're going to put it on the docket for, I don't know, events under the program coordinator.
Yeah. Well, I think when we start looking at an event with youth where the complexity is getting such that your team itself is probably 15 to 20 volunteers, that's probably something that needs to be looked at on the larger scale. If we can get away with it with smaller organizational bodies, then you know what, keep going with it. And again, I'm just using that number arbitrarily. It all has to do with the length of the plan, how much their budget is, as well as the overall complexity of the organization necessary to pull it off.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Jeff, a quick question. So for those that do run these events that maybe scan just a municipality or two, could they not be in the network, and therefore they would be a resource for other people trying to hold a similar type event and provide guidance?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Perfect. Thanks.
Do we have any other questions for Mark or Jeff or Kate or I, or anything regarding our scouting at home? No?
I just have a question about the campgrounds.
The campgrounds.
Yeah, like Langley Park in Peterborough here. Is that still available for us as scouters to go and just walk through and use, or like what are the regulations on that? Is John still there, still on board?
Well, the property committee has officially closed all of the properties, for scouting use, and I believe that is to be reviewed in mid-May. That said, on the Scouts Canada website, we've also canceled the summer camp programs simply because of COVID and the question regarding the safety of not only the volunteers but also the staff and the youth primarily. So whether or not we can, just walk in the park.
The answer is no.
Technically the answer is no. However, people walk where they want to walk.
Gord, just to speak about Langley, we are running security checks on the property, and no, the public is not allowed there. Scouting people are not allowed on the property, period. Debate's over. Scouts Canada has said that. That's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Okay, just asking.
Yeah.
Mike had a comment in the chat box going back to the recognition piece about some virtual awards, maybe engaging like Parliament, or like it says Prime Minister's office, or local MLAs, things like that. There is definitely lots of opportunity to still acknowledge the senior section awards recipients differently, but I don't know that that's anything, Mike, that is being coordinated right now outside of, say, the group itself taking that initiative on. There's not a coordinated approach to that right now that I know of.
No, I'm thinking it's a great opportunity for us to have MPP or an MPP or an MP, show up to a meeting. I mean, think how great it would be for the kid, for, in Belleville, for Neil Ellis, our local member of Parliament, to talk to them during a virtual scouting meeting. For them, it's something that occurs in the evening when hopefully their social schedule, especially now in this COVID-19 pandemic world, is a little different. I probably couldn't get our local MP Neil Ellis or MPP Todd Smith to show up to our meeting, but like 5 minutes out of their time at the start of a virtual meeting, like, think how cool that is.
Yeah, for sure. We have had some groups with successfully integrating third-party guests into their virtual section meetings as well. 4.5 Bowmanville had the med vents, and they've also had that zoo rescue animal company come in. So yeah, I mean, there is definitely a lot more opportunity for engaging with all levels of the community now that we do have moved to this platform. I love it. Love that idea.
One of our scout leaders is a supervisor with Hastings County Paramedic Services. So I've talked to him, what's the possibility of him taking his cell phone around and showing us the inside of an ambulance and showing us the inside of the building, and then actually having a chance for the scouts to say, thank you to the paramedics and to, talk with them. But we have opportunities now that probably 2 months ago we never thought were possible.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's also a lot of museums that have opened up virtual tours. So we've heard about some packs and troops all together in Zoom, and then what the scouter is sort of sharing his screen and is going through the virtual tour. So you can actually visit the Louvre right now and a few other museums around the world. They've just created these platforms and these different 360 cameras that are live that you can go and explore within the museums through those feeds also. So if you just go to some of the museum websites, you'll find all these great things that you can do.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate in our group to have a teacher in our group, and she sent us some stuff on Tuesday night when we had a virtual scouters meeting. Of a whole bunch of stuff, the museum meetings, going to Petra in Jordan or Israel, don't get me wrong on that one, or all this sort of stuff, robotic hands that you can build with just cardboard tubes. So she's thought of all these things because she has a kid at home and she's a teacher. So I think we have an opportunity now, as I put in the comments, to let's disrupt scouts as we know it. Let's get out of 7 to 9 on a Tuesday night and let's do something cool. And I think there are groups like Marcel that are doing really cool things. So let's figure out how to move this thing forward to something different than showing up for 2 hours on a Tuesday in our case.
Yeah,
most definitely.
Another comment here, maybe for your takeaway list, Mark, is an org chart that includes the future state with the program support model. Marcel, just looking for a little more detail, where exactly the groups and the group committees fit into that larger org chart. Is that what the comment is here?
Yeah, I just want to have an understanding of how it all fits together.
Yep, no, that's good.
Perfect. Oh yeah, Mike, I'm just seeing your comment here about your experience having Scouts youth in your group. Certainly well aware of that. So do you have anything that you want to share in terms of how you've modified to meet the youth with those special needs in your group? Kind of piggybacking onto that part of the conversation we had earlier. Carlos, certainly we can connect you to the Scouters from 2nd Sydney and 18th Belleville who have been creating strategies for incorporating youth that are hard of hearing for sure. So we can take that offline. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions in the chat box here that we haven't asked. So I guess just open floor now for any other comments, questions, etc.
It's Marcel. I probably haven't spoken enough, I guess, eh? Anyway, I just wanted to comment that I think, and I said this at the beginning of the meeting just briefly to a few of you, but I think this is a great venue, and I hope it can continue actually, regardless of COVID, because I think this is it's extremely convenient and accessible for so many, and I think it really is a great way to connect. And it's great to meet folks from all over and get an opportunity to share the ideas. So kudos to you guys for taking it on and making it happen, and I hope it continues.
Thanks. That is the plan. What we would like to see is to have more of these these what are they called? Podcasts or web seminars?
Podcasts.
I get you. It's okay.
Here.
I get you.
I just wanted to kind of throw my hat in for a second. I'm with Baltimore Scouts, and where we are, we have a lot of Beaver Scouts and Cubs that are very rural, and this is a great venue when we can get it to work. So I've kind of gone to emailing, letting people know what I'm doing, but we have quite a few families that struggle with getting a connection. And so I've been a bit leery about running a meeting per se, because I've got 2 older kids, and when they get frustrated that it doesn't work, I'm apprehensive to add anything to a parent's plate that might make their day more difficult. You know, I'm not trying to be a wet blanket, but connection is not an easy thing out here. We are hit and miss sometimes on the best of days. So like virtual meetings, I think are awesome. But it's for us, it's because if I'm the one running the meeting, I'm getting kicked out all the time when I have to run meetings for business and things like that. So I'm just apprehensive, and I guess maybe that's on my plate, that I'm apprehensive starting something that I keep fading in and out with the kids. I don't want to make their day more frustrating. Like, this is supposed to be a fun thing to do. You know, am I the only one? I'm assuming I'm not the only one struggling with that, but we are quite rural here.
Yeah,
we have kids
Janet,
that have no connection.
Yeah, we hear you for sure. First Enniskillen has been progressively getting more successful with their virtual. They're also very rural. Deb, yes, I see you're offering to speak to this. I was going to see if you would. So maybe Deb can share her experiences and how they've managed that.
Okay, so Janet, I started out with at first was teleconferencing, because then everyone could phone in, and I got contact. I got all the set up by Kate, so that I had a number to call into, and we had a call-in code, and so we all got together on the phone for the first couple of weeks, and I was the kids really liked it. I wasn't happy with it. I like being able to see the faces and that as well. And so after a couple of weeks, we ended up trying a Zoom meeting. And one thing with Zoom is that if you can't, like you would have to have the person hosting the meeting would have to be able to have a good connection. But everyone else, if they didn't have a good enough connection to be able to connect with video chat, you can turn off your video and still hear, or they also have a call-in line. So just the people who don't have the connection can actually phone in and connect to the meeting just by phone. And my other scouter does not have good internet. So what he does is he sets up the video part on his cell phone because he has unlimited data. And so he sets up the video on cell phone, and then he calls in. No, he sets up the video on his computer and he calls in on his cell phone so that he can hear better on his cell phone, but then he can just see the picture of the person who is speaking on his computer, but he's not trying to transmit video of himself as well.
Yeah, and I have a lot of experience with Zoom because I use it for another organization I belong to, and it's just I'm just trying to be aware of what other parents are dealing with. Because if I'm frustrated, big deal, I just go to bed. But you know, I'm so maybe I'll try that. Maybe I'll try the phone first. Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe I'll start there and see how it goes. Because I've been sending out emails and asking for feedback from families, but I'm trying not to. You know what I mean when I say that? I'm trying not to add to it. I work for the school board, and I understand some of the frustrations and struggles that people have. So I'm just trying to be aware of that too.
Yeah, Janet, one of the things that one of the other sections suggested last time was having a parent meeting on a conference call where you could actually just talk to the parents and understand what their limitations are and develop shared expectations for what virtual scouting will look like for your section. And it gives you the chance to really understand what their capacity is to support their youth. And once you know that and you have the parents working with you, you can move forward. And so having that meeting, I mean, it's something we can offer you the conference line as well. So you can follow up with me and we can book it for you. You can invite your scouters and your parents into a parent phone call and just explore it together. I think that's something that I really recommend, and establishing the expectations together and boundaries, screen time, etc. Every family has different capacity, right? So that could be a place for you to start in terms of feeling a little more comfortable to take the next step.
That's a good point. I never thought of that. That's a good idea. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments? It is 8:30.
And I will go ahead and stop the recording. One of the pieces of feedback that we received from our meeting last week was that the scouters would like to have a chance to introduce everybody who's on the call. Since only the speakers are seen, we may not do that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. If you wish to take part in an introduction and just to be a part of a social conversation, I invite you to stay on the line. I'll go ahead and end the recording and our formal content. And thanks everybody for presentations and participation.
1 second, Kate. We got to remind everybody about next week.
Oh, yes, right.
So next week, same time, next Thursday, we will be having another guest speaker, and we'll be talking about the David Eustace Learning Center and walking you through how to complete your Wood Badge 1 and Scouting Fundamentals and Respect in Sport through that, as well as checking on learner progress and so forth. So we will be sending that invite out tomorrow, right, Kate? Or tonight?
Yeah. Tonight, yeah.
And we're very excited about doing that one as well. So if you have any questions regarding how to access the Learning Center, how to check your progress, which modules you've completed, which you haven't completed, if you're having any difficulty, please send those questions in and we can forward them to our guest speaker, who is Alicia, who was one of the big project managers of the Learning Center and moving it forward. So she's fantastic. And she's looking forward to joining us next Thursday night. So we hope you can make that.
And before we shut it off, I just want to thank you, Kate and Gwen, for all your work on this platform, and Mark for being our special guest tonight and explaining the functional teams.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Mark.
Awesome.
No worries. My mom's been trying to call me twice, so I'm going to go take that call. I have no idea why she's calling me. It's probably to tell me there's something on Netflix that she's found. Oh my God, did you see this Tiger King thing? But who knows? I'm just going to go take this call and see. But thanks, everyone. Thank you very much. And yeah, hope to see you guys on another call. Take care.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
So